Thank you for being here. My name is Marina Kiers, and I am the Executive Director at Hendricks County Senior Services. And I have been helping as a volunteer with the Senior Center Coalition with Dan and Deborah and Beverly and Bob Pittman. And we've just been a faithful little crew working through this pandemic time to learn from each other in a lot of ways, but then see what we can share out with our colleagues who are also passionate about serving seniors. And so that's really at the heart of what today is about, is figuring out how do we, as we put it, move beyond the bake sale so that we have some sustainable support for our seniors. When I worked in a different field in domestic violence work, we always talked about a day when we didn't have to exist anymore. And I love working in a mission where we want to always exist, because the goal and the hope is that our seniors will always continue to age, and that we can have elders as a part of our communities for a long time. So I don't intend our mission to ever go away or put myself out of business by doing amazing work. We hope that we're around for much longer than we as individuals are around. So to kick us off, I'm going to do a little housekeeping, and then we'll jump right in with the questions that we have for our panelists and start learning from each other. The first thing I want to share is that this session will be recorded. So Deborah is going to get these recording posted out so that even if people couldn't come to see it live, they'll still be able to learn later on. So just as a point of awareness, it will be recorded. If you have questions or comments, you can use the chat feature. In a minute, I'm going to ask everyone to mute their microphones and turn off their cameras so we can stay focused on the panelists who are speaking. One of our panelists is not on video, but we'll hear from him. The other two are on video. So if everybody else could mute when I get there, that would be great. But then the chat feature is a great place to put questions, and Deborah is going to be monitoring that chat. We can't answer technical questions, so I'm sorry if your microphone goes out or you can't hear. We won't be able to fix those. But if you say, you know, I really want to share this, or I have this question I hope that gets asked at the end, please put that there, because Deborah's going to be working through those questions at the end. And the goal is to leave at least 15 minutes for questions at the end. So we'll be doing that. Any questions for me before we get started? I'm just gonna, nope, no one is raising their hand. So why don't, if you are not a panelist or a presenter, we'll go ahead and mute yourself and turn off your camera. And I'm gonna get started with our first question is for Bree Inman. And for those of you that don't know Bree, she is the director at the Wabash Activity Center. And she's had, like many of us, has had an interesting time through the pandemic. But
we have.
In terms of fundraising, Bree, what did you do last year that you couldn't do this year because of COVID-19? And then the second part of that question really is, what's been the impact on your budget?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, basically everything, you know, everything's been a challenge. We have a yearly murder mystery dinner, and that brings in quite a bit of money. And of course, we didn't have that. We have 2 rummage sales yearly. That was out the window. Our holiday bazaars were gone. We haven't had anything this year, fundraising wise, that we've been able to take forward. And so we did a GoFundMe. We're doing, right now we're doing raffles. We got raffle baskets that we got going up. I tell you though, on our budget's looking, we're roughly 10,000 in the hole. We run off of a shoestring budget to begin with anyway. And when this pandemic broke out, had it not been for our community, the United Way here in the Wabash Valley, as well as our community foundation, we wouldn't be sitting here right now. And when we reopened up back in July, we were on a good path. You know, people were excited to come back. They wanted to come back. That's why we're here. We're here for them. And so we've had a couple scares with COVID. Our bingo caller, he just passed away from COVID. And so, that put a scare into everybody. So we are down to maybe 2 little classes running, and we are back into the same boat that we were in March, going, what do we do next? So we're reaching out, to the community again. We're talking about maybe having a virtual murder mystery dinner that we can do online and invite the public to come in on that. And we got some other things maybe, up our sleeves that we're hoping to pull out, but it's been tough. It's been really tough. And if something doesn't turn around soon, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't.
Tell me, Bree, can you share a little bit about that GoFundMe? Was it successful, and what do you think made it a success?
Oh, well, I tell you, when this first happened, my thing was, we got to get some money. We have Meals on Wheels. They operate out of our building. So it's not like we could cut the heat down. It's not like we can shut the lights off because they're still in the building. And so, what was your question? I went somewhere
About
else.
the GoFundMe.
Oh,
What
well,
made it successful?
Right. So my immediate thing was, we've got to start raising money somehow. And so I just set up the GoFundMe, and I called the news station and I said, hey, can we talk? And so I had both news stations come out. And then, of course, I emailed this to all of my colleagues. They spread the word. And so it ended up being very, very successful for us.
Good.
And we are beyond grateful to the community for helping us out. I mean, it was amazing. That's all I can say. So.
Yeah, it's such an encouragement when you see community members come alongside you and you see their enthusiasm for your mission, even if they weren't maybe partners in the
Right.
past or had been lapsed. So that's wonderful. Good.
And we even had an anonymous donation 2.5 months ago of $5,000.
Wow.
$5,000. Yeah, it was unbelievable. And it came from the bank, and they wouldn't tell me who it was, but they have absolutely no idea the tears that it brought to us and the help that it gave to us. So
yeah, that's wonderful.
I mean, and it wasn't hard. I just called the news station. I said, hey, I need an interview. And it was my first Zoom interview, and it was absolutely horrible. I learned a lot during that interview about the do's and don'ts of Zoom meetings. But yeah, it's been tough. And I don't know what we're going to do, but I do know we'll get through it. We've been here as the senior center since 1965. Wow. So I do not, we're so close now. They talk about vaccines, and they talk about, we just got to get them through the next 3 months. So I know that something will happen and we'll get through this. I do. So
that's right. Well, I'll hold on to that hope.
And it's all because of them, yeah. When we were shut down, I would get calls. I'm going crazy. I don't know I would go and pull up in front of their house, and I would call them and say, hey, I'm outside. And we would communicate from me standing in the road by my car to these people on their porches. Or if they, they were scared to go for a walk or do something, I would stand out there and watch them and make sure they didn't fall. And I'd make them walk up and down the street, that sort of thing, because it's them not coming here is a huge, they need that communication, whether it's physical or mental or social. They need that interaction. So that's
right. Yeah, that's right. Well, switching gears just a little bit, and we'll come back to Bree, of course. Mayor Buckley is the mayor in Beech Grove, and he has been a strong supporter of the senior center there. And so, Mayor Buckley, I want to ask you two different kinds of questions. The first is really, how did Beech Grove come to support and provide that public support to the senior center? And the second piece of that is that during this pandemic, what many of us have experienced is our local jurisdictions have had to switch priorities and make some other decisions. So has Beech Grove had to come to any of those hard decisions that would impact the senior center, and why or why not? So welcome, and thank you for joining us. I'll let you answer.
Well, it's good to be here. And the city, since the inception of the senior center concept, the city has always funded the senior center. As we speak, it's on Main Street in a city-owned building. And each year, the city council budgets money for the operation of the senior center, which includes salaries and benefits. So this isn't anything new. I have always been a supporter of it because I see what it does for people. some of these seniors, their whole life evolves around the center. So when you look at it that way, then it's easy to see why we would fund this type of operation. It's been difficult this year, but we have not made any cuts at the senior center, nor do we plan to. Now, we've had to, this year we budgeted approximately $140,000 for the operation of the center, and actually next year that increases so that the director can do more programming. But this year was a challenge because of COVID. One of the panelists talked about loneliness, and that is certainly, she hit it right on the head. Our director and the assistant director, they check on these people all the time. The center is open as we speak. Mm-hmm. They only let so many people in, and you have to go through temperature testing and all that stuff. But one of the interesting things that we did this year that we haven't done in the past is we had to change the focus of the center due to the virus. We really didn't focus on delivery of food to local seniors, but this year we did. We changed gears, and people have a food insecurity when they can't get out. Mm-hmm. And so the director there at the center and her assistant, they started focusing on delivery of food, and it was really good. And that's one of the purposes of the center, and that's why the center is so important. And yeah, I'm a public safety guy. I was a fireman for 30 years. I get it, but there's other things that are going on in the city. We have to have good parks, mm-hmm. and we have to provide for seniors. So funding the senior center is really a no-brainer for me. And we'll get back to where we were within the next 6 months to a year. So I'm not really worried about it. Now, one of the things that the senior center does is they have their own organization, and they raise their own money, and it's to do things within the center for them. The city doesn't take that money. We encourage them to reinvest in themselves. So they raise money on the side for their special programs, but the city never sees that. The city's more interested in funding the infrastructure of the center. So the salaries for the director and the assistant director, utilities and improvements, things like that. And the seniors themselves, they raise money to do programs for themselves. But that has been diminished this year due to the virus. So, we're no different than all of you.
Yeah, that's an interesting model, but it sounds like it's certainly working. And having that base of support and that reliable support from the city, I'm sure, is a huge help there in Beech Grove, and gives that confidence to the participants, but also to the staff that they can continue to provide the services. So, Mayor, when we get back to you, I know that one of the questions probably on many of the minds is, how do we build other champions like that in our own communities? Because it sounds like the Beech Grove Senior Center is really fortunate to have a leader in the city who is going to be a cheerleader and a champion for the work, and who understands that the senior centers are vital. It's a vital part of the community, and not just an accessory to the community, maybe. So thank you. Amy, Amy Rose is our third panelist, and Amy has been a consultant working with senior centers, and now she works for World Vision and doing regional philanthropy for that important organization, much larger organization than many of our senior centers. And so, Amy, we're excited that you can share some expertise with us just in general about fundraising. So one of the questions I think that I'm excited to hear the answer to is, Most of the senior centers are 501c3 organizations. So we are fundraising for our missions. What have you observed in terms of fundraising as the pandemic has kind of drug on? We thought this might be over in June, right? So it's not. So what are you observing in terms of big picture philanthropy? And if you want to drive that down into senior center philanthropy work, that'd be great too.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me, guys. And I think Mayor Buckley is now on my list of heroes, because if we all had a Mayor Buckley, we may not need this webinar. So
Absolutely.
I think oh man, we all need a Mayor Buckley. That's for sure.
I'm sitting over here going, wow.
I'm moving to Beach Grove. But in the beginning of this, I mean, just to be honest with you, in the beginning, I'm an optimist and a very much a glass is half full kind of gal too. So I figured, we may have a bad quarter, or, we might go into the half a year, but then, we'll pick this up in the summer, and then everyone, like Bree was saying, can go back and have their, signature events in the fall, and, just kind of recoup, and maybe we'll be a little down, and then I think drug on is such an optimal term, because I do feel now, here we are, you guys, in November. Can you believe we made it to November? And, I think we're all looking at numbers and thinking, okay, so we didn't do as bad as we thought we'd do the first half of the year. But if you had a signature event, what are we going to do to make up that loss? So I guess, things that, and we'll talk about this, I hope later on, but this pivot, or, words like pivot, ingenuity, creativity, thinking outside the box, all of these terms have applied to us this year, because we couldn't do the face-to-face relationship building, focus on major gifts for the senior center. And then, the rest will come kind of the year. I mean, we just didn't have that year. So, I'll definitely share with you some of the things that we've done. I've worked for some smaller organizations this year, with a budget about $500,000. So they're not all World Vision, and, every little, event is a big line item in the budget. So anyway, yes, I've seen some real creativity this year, and just by us doing this, with this Zoom call, I mean, this is part of it. So, last year I should have known how much I relied as a fundraiser on that face-to-face contact and that relationship, 101 kind of stuff. When I looked at my Starbucks budget, I take a lot of people out for coffee. That's what I do, right? And this year, not so much. I mean, my stars are dwindling. I'm not even sure I'm a gold member anymore at the Starbucks. But seriously, because of that, not being able to meet people halfway. And I work with a lot of philanthropists, a lot of folks who are, they're retired, and they're, sort of kicking back, and they may be in their, in their later years, never use Zoom, really don't FaceTime. And so there have been a lot of times this year where, we've sort of done the whole, okay, let's just try this, and let's try to figure out how we can be face-to-face just for some of that contact. So anyway, that's and I think we should hopefully talk about what kinds of things we can do this year that maybe we didn't think about ever doing before. And Bree, I can't wait to hear more about your murder mystery event.
Well, I don't know much about it. We just came up with it. A few days ago. So we're all me and my board of directors, we're trying to put our brains together. We're like, are we going to send like secret emails out? How are we going to do this, to keep it going and to keep it exciting? So I'll let you know as soon as we get everything together. Hopefully it'll be something that maybe we can go live with by the end of January. So that's how quick we want to get it going. So
that is awesome. That's awesome. And the events that I've done online have been all, major gifts, sort of like corporate gifts, people getting behind us, knowing that, we just can't fundraise the way we have before.
And unfortunately, I know when we have this event, there's not going to be a lot of member participation like there normally would be, because, I get Bree, I don't know how to do it, or Bree, I don't have internet, or Bree, and so I know that when we do this, it's going to be the community support. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be fun, and we're gonna learn a lot going into this.
I think this is a good segue because both of you said something that I have found to be true, and the fundraiser on my team is on this call, and I'm sure she's in her office nodding her head that for the events that have had to pivot to virtual, we are finding that our corporate friends are supporters of those. And so they're willing to sponsor, they're willing to step up in the same way that they might have even if it was in person. And so we couldn't have been successful in reaching some of our fundraising goals if they would not have been willing to do that. And even colleagues of mine that are working in other human services work said the same thing. Even when they had to cancel their live events, their corporate sponsors stuck with them and continued to provide or keep their sponsorship in place. They didn't pull that back. And so I hope that's an encouragement to keep moving forward, because even though it looks different, I think our friends in the corporate world are willing to invest and let us try. So Amy, I'm gonna, as we start this next round of questions, I'm gonna ask you at first, and then we'll have Michelle, Bree, jump in as well. What, I guess, really, what has been the most successful pivot that you've seen? Whether you were a part of it or you saw another organization, what did you see that you think is applicable to this group of senior centers where any of us could say, yep, we could do that? That's a pivot that we could all make.
Well, the most successful thing I've done recently, like within the last few weeks, has been an ugly Christmas sweater party. It was sort of like a joke. We were with the board and it was kind of like ha ha ha. But I thought, no, that can work. We could do this. And so are you guys familiar with Canva.com? Okay, so they have this, I love Canva, I'm a Canva girl, but they have invitations that you can make and they're brilliant. They already look like an ugly Christmas sweater. And so, what do you do if that's going to be on Zoom? Well, you have to have the reward for ugliest sweater. Can you send, if you want to send, people are home. So if you want to send, hot cocoa, if you want to send some wine, if you want to do whatever, just get them involved so that they will get on that call. And then we reached out again to some sponsors that had never sponsored before, because I thought, this is new and different. And, this is a good time to start reaching out to people that they've been trying to get in the hug, but never been able to, it's something different. And much to my surprise, the banks especially were really excited about it. So, that's one small thing that we did, but the level of sponsorship that they were able to come through for us, which is rare, because normally you would want to plan this ahead. All fundraisers know you try to get to people the year before for the next year's gift, because they can get you in their line item, in a line item in their marketing budget or something. So I was really shocked at the level of support we were able to gain from just this little, online event that, we pushed on social media. We did the promoted Facebook ad. We did everything we could. We have a very, very, very small office. So it's all hands on deck. I sent the invitations out from my kitchen table. So, it's not like some big machine. This wasn't for World Vision. And yeah, so anyway, that's one thing that we're doing this.
I think, Amy, that you brought up a really good point, is trying to get creative about how do we engage the person who's at home. So whether you send them the hot cocoa or the tea packet in the mail, some of the virtual conferences that I've seen colleagues participate in, they got their goodie bag sent to them at their home ahead of time. So they still felt connected and had a visual reminder of the event in front of them. And that's I think it's a smart way to just keep people engaged and to know that you thought of them, that it was more than just them showing up for the Zoom, to the dinner, that there was you weren't going to buy them dinner, right, for their virtual. So what can you do to engage them in that murder mystery dinner if you're not going to be serving them a meal? Or maybe you are delivering a meal to them by DoorDash. I don't know. But, how do you keep the donor and the participant engaged at home to feel good about what they're doing on your behalf.
Right.
Because, you know, assuming that they've invested something and showing up at a Zoom meeting, you know, none of us particularly enjoy Zoom meetings. So to pay to show up shows that you have some heart for the mission, and it's nice to show appreciation for that. So
Right.
yeah, I love that.
Yeah, like for
It doesn't have
us,
to be expensive. It can be a Canva invite and an invitation to join in.
yeah, like for us, we really haven't done anything virtual because when we opened up in July, we started planning for our yard sale. We were going to have this bean dinner outside. We were excited and getting everything going. We were going to bring the bales of hay in, and we were going to have this big thing. You know, we were going to have the Parks Department bring picnic tables out. Health Department was on board. You know, we were following all the guidelines, and then basically 4 weeks ago, the bottom fell out again. Our numbers spiked, and it was just like a big no, this isn't happening. I'm dealing with somebody close to me right now that's got cancer. So with that being said, I've got to be careful what I'm doing. So now that's where we started this campaign with our community. It's called the Coronavirus Swear Jar Campaign. And so there's flyers that have been taken out, these businesses and even people just within their homes, they're putting up, I've got flyers. And so it's the Coronavirus Swear Jar Campaign. And every time they say the word coronavirus or COVID, somebody has to put $1 into that jar, and then all the proceeds come to the center. So
I love that. We're all jealous we didn't think of that. We'd be millionaires.
So far here, ours is getting pretty full. And so like people over at UAP, which is our hospital across the street here, the doctor's offices, they've got one there. The cancer doctor, they've got one in their office now. So people are starting to catch on, and people are picking up flyers. And I said, you guys could kind of battle it out. Who gets the money? I was like, well, maybe they want to know who gets the least amount. That's not what we, because everybody hates the ugly little word coronavirus. So that's our latest little endeavor, is the coronavirus swear jar that everybody's got sitting out in their businesses for us.
That's really great, Bree. I love that. So another question for Mayor Buckley is, there are varying degrees of financial support that comes from municipalities to senior center organizations. And I'm sure on even this small group of folks, we all have different experiences. So what would you recommend as an effective way for senior centers to get their local governments engaged in their work? And how do you think is the best way for senior centers to talk about the value they bring to the local community?
Well, I'm not so sure on if you have a county-wide senior agency, but if you have a city, especially a small municipality, the way you get funding for the center itself is to elect people who support you.
Without doing any campaigning, right?
Right. Now, we have very strict rules that we apply at the center. As a matter of fact, I've been mayor 9 years, and from the day I started, I have made it clear that there is no politicking to go on in that center. You leave the politics at the door, and that includes me. There's no place for it there. But the way you get funding is you talk to your elected officials and you educate them about what you want to do. Elected officials, most of them can figure it out real quick that it's the right thing to do, because the vast majority of seniors vote, and they will vote for someone who supports them. Trust me. That's how I would recommend to any service wanting to do the seniors. They are a much needed service, and elected officials know it.
I appreciate that. And I like what you said about education, because that's not a one-time occurrence. And those of us that work with individual donors know that as well, that you spend time educating folks over and over again, and you continue to talk about the value and the mission and what you're accomplishing, but it can't just happen once a year, and it has to happen more often. And I would say, as another part of that encouragement, we are a county-wide organization, and we don't receive a lot of financial support from the county. But another area that we've found success is just asking our township trustees if they would support us through their indigent relief funds, or whatever they call them. But that's another source of dollars that can support specific programming, and those dollars really can make a difference. And really what they've asked from us is just to tell them who we're serving from their township, so they can, not the individual's name, of course, but how many individuals are you serving from this township? So even some of our small townships, they wish they had a senior program. If they can invest in ours, then they know that we'll take care of the seniors in their township. So that's just another option for individual senior centers to pursue.
And
Government units, especially city councils, they will reduce your funding. And the reason they will reduce your funding is because they don't know what you do. If you tell them what you do, they'll leave it alone. And our director out here, at the end of each month, she does a monthly report of her activities. Each elected official gets a copy of that report. Now, whether they read it or not is another thing. But for those who read it, including myself, they'll get the picture real quick that there's a lot of people that go in and out of that building, and they transport a lot of people to the store, to the doctor's offices, and they'll realize that that is a valuable service and it should be maintained.
And that's what I was going to say. I think you talk about education. Sometimes I think it's about the lack of education. People do not understand how important what we do here is to our senior community. I mean, they are the smartest people I know, and so I think sometimes I always say it's lack of communication. People don't understand. They're not educated on what we do and how important we are for them. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
I'll tell you a very, very quick story. When my wife and I moved over, we lived down the street from the center, by the way. When we moved in 79 down there, our neighbor lived by himself, an elderly gentleman. And, we became friends with him, and we looked after him. He didn't have any family, per se. But every day he walked down to the center. It was about a block away. And we realized, both my wife and I realized that, that center is his whole life. And if you take that away from him, he has absolutely nothing. So me being a fireman all these years, that really didn't have anything to do with being the center. It was the impact that building has on these people that live around it. And that is why it was so important for me, once I became mayor, was that I was going to fund this thing come hell or high water, whether anybody liked it or not. So that was the story behind that. It was a great it was a great thing to watch, because every day he'd shuffle down to that center, and that was his whole life. So
I think many of us could tell that same story about a senior that we can picture in our minds right now. That our program or our facility is their lifeline. And so what would they do without us is really that question that we need to communicate to our donors, that we're providing that lifeline for individuals in the community. Yeah. So Amy, I'm going to ask you another fundraising question in the age of COVID. Let's talk a little bit about face-to-face interactions compared with our virtual interactions. Is there a unique upside to having a virtual interaction, and what are the downsides that you have found that might not be obvious?
Well, I think as a major gift fundraiser, that the upsides would be you can have a lot more visits in a very short period of time. So, I mean, honestly, I'm not. I wish I was joking about the Starbucks and my caffeine addiction, but when you're scheduling those a day, you may only be able to get 3 in. But when you're doing Zoom calls or FaceTime or Ring Central or whatever you like to use, Teams, you can. I mean, I've been meeting with 6 or 7 people a day, donors a day. So that's been, I mean, for me, that's been an upside. Some of a downside might be with, I work with specific philanthropists that like to, at times, introduce me to some of their networks and their circles of influence. And that's been a little bit stunted. That is a little bit more difficult, I think. I'm trying sort of the same things with donors, talking to them about, do you have anyone else that would like to get involved, that type of thing. And, yeah, but I'm not really sure they're, real approachable or attainable right now or that kind of thing. So that has been, I mean, in my world, that's been sort of the downside. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that we've experienced something really similar. We have an annual fundraising breakfast that's always designed to have people bring who do you know that we need to know to our facility. And obviously we couldn't do that this year. We pivoted to a virtual event and it was successful, but that's the exact comment that we made was we didn't capture any of the new people. We didn't bring anybody new to the table, even if our existing donors stepped up or exceeded giving. It's not the same as having new people. So we're trying to figure out how to reach those new people. So if anybody has an answer to that, put it in the chat because Amy and I think want to know. But I think that's going to be a challenge a little bit for a while. I want to get to 2 questions that have come up in the chat. But before I jump to that, Bree, did you have anything that you wanted to particularly add about those donor interactions that are virtual? Any upside or downside that you have found?
No, I'm kind of like, I'm on the same page as Amy. I've reached out and weekly I have my meetings, I'm always reaching out to people. We're always getting together and I'm kind of getting the same thing, it's basically no, yeah, it's disheartening because, when we have our events here, there's always people coming up and, I'm always getting we're always getting new people. We're always getting, but we're not. I mean, it's not happening, they're not interested or they got their own issues that they're dealing with. So it's sad. It's disheartening,
But keep asking.
Oh, I do. Believe me, I do. I do.
I ended up having a gentleman who he knew I was, we've been talking for a while about introducing me to his chairman. He's a wealth investment banker and he has his chairman of the board and I've been wanting to meet with him. And so he knew what was going to happen this year. So he actually increased his gift. So I think
that's wonderful.
But I'll take that.
That's right.
That's
wonderful.
I stopped somebody the other day in the grocery store and I knew who they were. And I actually had a conversation with them. I'm like, hey, I run the senior center, I've been wanting to reach out and, we ended up having a long conversation and, he said, reach out to him in a couple weeks, before the end of the year. So we'll see how that goes. But he probably thought I was crazy, but I thought here's the opportunity. So.
Well, isn't that the life of a human service worker and or fundraiser or director is you're always working. So if you're not providing a referral, you're fundraising at the grocery store. So your hairdresser gets so much information from
my
you.
My boyfriend's like, there. What are you doing? I'm like, I really want to talk to him. I just need a minute of his time. So
that's really true. You're always on. So the questions in the chat really are directed at Mayor Buckley, but it's an interesting question, I think, for all of us to think about, which is a question of how do you raise that consciousness in the community? I am certain, Mayor Buckley, that the day that you decide you don't want to be mayor anymore, or the voters would decide that, then the senior center is going to wonder, well, what happens to us? So really you want your elected officials to also be building champions and increasing that awareness in the community beyond just the individual decision makers. So do you have any suggestions for those of us that might be trying to, we might have a champion, but we wish that they could be duplicated in our communities?
Well, what I'm doing now is I'm in my third and final term. I'm not going to run anymore when my term is finished. I'm going to retire. So any elected official who doesn't prepare somebody to take their place isn't worth a grain of salt. So what I have to do over the next couple of years is to prepare people to assume leadership. And one of the things that I have to point out is how all of these programs are important, whether it's not just police and fire, it's parks, senior services, community center, things such as that. Those are all relevant in the big picture of how to run a city. And this is why you need to do these things. So I would tell advise all of you is to invite these potential leaders to come in and educate them on what you're doing. You'll find out that you'll have, on both sides of the political aisle, you will have widespread support for that. And some of those people they will know. So that's how I would approach it if I was you folks.
Yeah, I think you're reminding us that sometimes we have to get back to basics, and it's okay. We all feel like we repeat ourselves a lot. And like, I have said that in so many appeals. I have said that in so many presentations and speeches, but somebody else is hearing it for the first time new. And so just because we're tired of saying it doesn't mean someone else is tired of hearing it. So it's a good reminder that we have to be educating all the time. You never know who you're talking to and what they might bring to you, whether that's financial support or a volunteer or a good connection or a connection to a friend that could be a supporter. So great. One of the comments and questions that have come out of the chat, I'd like to call on Colleen Martin. If you would feel comfortable unmuting yourself, I appreciate that. But you had shared in the comments that you've had a really supportive town council and town manager in Newburgh.
Mhm.
And I would love to just hear that story of, and Dan asked it as well, that what could you tell us about how that happened and what that looks like now?
Okay, and we have survived several town managers. We don't have a mayor, we have a town manager. And Newburgh is a town, I consider myself part of Newburgh, but I don't live in Newburgh. I live in a township. So we serve, Newburgh is historic. Newburgh is a pretty small town. The center was originally built under a federal grant to serve seniors. And so there's a great ownership, and that's what I heard the mayor say, of the service that we provide. And so they provide the building, the utilities, the maintenance of the building, which is really, we've had some issues in the town financially, and that has never come up that they would cut that off. At one point, they thought about renting it. Could we rent the place out on the weekends? And then we made another presentation and we talked about the priorities are the hot meal program and making sure that it's ready for senior activities. And it's very hard to do that if you're trying to manage a rental type program, and that went off the table. So that was the good news. We only do, we are the center for the CSFP program. So once a month, low income seniors. And then we have what I'll call the sort of classic card players who, I heard somebody say they come at 9 o'clock in the morning and stay till 2. That's, they live alone. So the hot meal program, we are also integrated to a large degree with other organizations like Historic Newburgh. Some of our board members share those seats. So we sort of have that, and we work hard when we look for new board members of having sort of a foot in both worlds. A civic leader that is also involved in something else, because that has helped us tremendously. we don't do a lot of fundraisers, but here's one that has really been a steady one for us. And I'm just writing thank you notes for our annual appeal. It's called Day Sponsors. And it's like public radio. And we had an Eagle Scout project probably 10 years ago. And they put up a sign, not an electric sign, but the sign that you slide the letters in. And so we sell day sponsorships. So you donate $100, you get your name in the monthly newsletter, you get a mention on Facebook, we give you a handmade card, and you get to put something on the sign. Happy 40th birthday. Happy, you could sponsor Martin Luther King Day. And that, our donor retention rate is probably 80%. So I've got people, and I'm just doing the notes, we've done this person's wedding anniversary for the last 10 years. So it's their 50th wedding anniversary. Somebody's mother's 98. So it's kind of a combination. It's very simple. It's very, no Starbucks budget, no major donors. Although at one point, 10 years ago, someone gave us $5,000 because we were doing a bad job we didn't have these other things in place. The other one to me, and we do an event called Porcopalooza, which is a very simple, started out as butts and ribs. And it was a, pulled pork thing, and you buy for $25. Churches do it all the time. We have a group of volunteers in our community that do that for organizations. And we thought we would have to cancel that this year. And we talked about that, but then we figured out a way to do it, limited contact, masks with pig material. We enlisted some young people. We don't have smart cards, but please bring us a check and all that kind of stuff. And we made, last year, I think we made, and again, not big budgets, not $1 million, we made $13,000. This year we made within $100 of that.
Well,
And that gets a lot of community support. And the one thing I would say is people, because we thought, oh gosh, people won't want to do that. They'll be so suspect of food. No, people will buy food. Do you know what I mean? And we got new customers. So that was really a good thing. Now we do a lot of communicating on Facebook. None of our seniors ever see it, but the community does. And so
I think that we've all learned a lot about Facebook and which of our seniors are really engaged. And we have found that some of our seniors, and I know Dan in Columbus, Indiana, has been doing a lot of virtual activities. We have a lot of seniors who are really engaged, but it's been fun to see our community members who have joined in on those virtual activities and events. And then when we've had to pivot then to those online only events, those are our donors. The seniors might not donate through that virtual event, but the community members will. Amy, I would like to ask you a question. We had a very wonderful opportunity this year with our local community foundation with a matching grant, and they did this specific to COVID, but it was wonderful, and we were able to meet the match, and what we found is our donors loved it. And so I suspect our donors are like others. Can you talk a little bit about the power of those matching grants?
No, I
If
love
you can
matching
get it.
gifts. Yeah, if you can get it, right?
If you can get it.
Individual matching gift. Matching
Yeah.
gifts are just, and especially year-end giving, it really, really helps. Like I was thinking, I'm listening to a lot of people talk about their events, and sometimes in a major gift fundraising world, you can look at those events and say they're fundraisers, and you're branding yourselves, and you're out there and it's marketing and it's bringing in new people and that education we keep talking about. But at the same time, those matching gifts are just, I can't speak highly enough of them. I'm literally doing one right now from a gentleman who had been giving for the last 2 years. And again, this is one of the organizations I work with like a $500,000 budget. And so he'd been giving $15,000 for about, 3 or 4 years. So I called him and I said, this year, because of COVID, everything's down. And, they were very heavy on their events, based fundraising, and they didn't do so well this year. And so he really, really would like to use your gift as a match. And He actually increased it to 20,000 when he knew we were going to do that. I asked him if it was okay. I'm like, would you like us to use your name? And he's like, no, don't use my name. I don't want you to use my name. I said, can we say a generous donor? And he said, absolutely. Just don't, I don't need the credit or whatever. And so that actually was the sort of the kickoff to our year-end giving appeal. And we launched that a couple weeks before Giving Tuesday. And we were able to utilize that all the way through Giving Tuesday, which was nice, to have something to talk about and a goal to hit. We set a time limit on that matching gift, which I think is also important, that it doesn't drag out or into the other goal that you have, the annual goal. But yeah, it's been hugely successful. So it actually was a $20,000 match, and we're at 32,000, which is huge. I mean, that's a really big number for us. But they're all, and we had one $5,000 gift, but the rest are, $250, $100, $25. Somebody signed up today for $20 a month. It's a big deal.
I think that experience holds true, that some people love it and they'll increase their gift, and then other people feel so good about their $50 gift becoming $100. And we all know those $50 gifts are our bread and butter, right? We celebrate those small donations as well as the big ones. So yeah, that's great. That when you can give people that good feeling that their gift is really having a huge impact. So we are coming close. I can't believe it, but we're coming close to the end of our time. And I don't see any questions in the chat, but if you had a burning question, now would be a good time to drop it in. So to close out, I would like to give, each of you a minute, if you can hold to a minute, just to share. And Mayor Buckley, I'm going to put you on the spot and end with you. What is the one piece of, if you didn't have a chance to say it, or if you need to repeat, what's the one piece of advice that you would give to those of us on this call that will make a difference? And how can we build a sustainable organization and grow the giving to our senior center communities? So Mayor Buckley, we'll let you kick off with 1 minute.
Well, first of all, I want to thank everybody who participated in this, and I want to thank everybody who works in these programs for seniors and gives to the seniors. You have to continue to move forward with the programming that you provide and look for other ways to make it better. I've always worked off of the premise that if it's not broke, break it, because you can always do better. And the senior citizens that you serve depend on you. So I applaud each and every one of you, and I wish you nothing but the best. So I have to step away. I have to walk into a 2:30 meeting. So if I could be excused, I would appreciate it. God bless.
Absolutely.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bree, I will turn it over to you for your 1 minute to the world.
Well, I go back to, and this is what I always say, I think it's all about education, being creative, educate anybody and everybody about what we do. I like to give success stories, I like to I'm always talking about success stories because there's always a success story here, weekly, monthly. Like Amy said, look outside of the box, but I still say, a lot of people don't understand the importance that, especially for everybody, but here in Vigo County, we don't get any funding, we get no support. So it's all about education, looking outside the box and being creative. So, but I want to thank you guys for having me here today. I wanted to throw that in there. So
Thank you for being a part. We appreciate it.
I lost volume.
Oh,
There
Amy.
you are.
Thank you. And I'd also like to say that the education piece is key. And also I wanted to throw out there, we didn't talk about any strategic planning or anything like that, but afpglobal.org, great resource if you're just starting out. Donor Bill of Rights is on there. You can get some templates for your strategic development plan. It doesn't need to be a manifesto. It's just a list of things to do to keep you organized. And then PamelaGrow.com. She has a great piece on her website as well about your first 100 days as a new development department. And I love sending people that don't have huge budgets for their, or even people or staff for their development team. I love to send them there because there are some really good resources there just to get you started, good ideas, get the creativity flowing, and stay donor centric. Stay donor centric. They're there to help you and be your partner. So, yeah, but thank you very much, everyone.
Amy, could you send me what you just outlined, and then I can distribute it to everybody who's on the phone?
Yeah, I think I wrote it down, but I don't know if I wrote it down right or not.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, great. Yeah, if you just send it to me, then that'd be perfect, and I'll send it to the world.
Awesome.
Thank you. Thanks. We have 2 minutes left, and there are some bright people in this call or on this call. So Dan, Haley, Janice, Patty, if Kara
had a comment about,
yeah, if there's something that you feel like we've missed that you'd like to share, and of course, as we end our time, if anyone needs to step away, please do that. We didn't want to keep anybody over, but we all love to learn together too. So if there's anything anybody wants to share, please do.
This is Colleen. Hey, I think the one thing when you talk about communication, I think almost everybody has elderly parents or will have elderly parents. I include my children in that. And I think they want the best for them, even if they don't have a good relationship with them. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of the thing we try to communicate is it's the simple things, a place to go, it's cheers without liquor. The American Legion is kind of the place for some seniors. I noticed that in our neighborhood. And I think that's important. My mother doesn't live anywhere near here. My mother lives with my sister in Boston, but I wish, I always say, I wish we had this kind of senior center we have in Newburgh for my mom. Maybe she would have gone when she was more able. And I try to emphasize that with our donors and the communication we have with them. It's just a pretty simple message. And I think, again, everybody had a mother or dad. So it's my thought.
Good thoughts.
This is Bob. I think it's been a great session. And I think that it's good to have a city leader like Mayor Buckley who understands what we do and who is dedicated to helping us. I think the story he told about his neighbor is just a fantastic one because it helped him understand how important it was. And I think anytime we can tell that kind of a story, marry it with some statistics, and I know Dan has collected some interesting statistics about the number of seniors that have died during this pandemic year, and the suggestion that that isolation results in sickness and in shorter lifespans. So you combine the two, the story along with the statistics. We need to get really good at telling all of that.
Yeah, we try to remember that we have to speak to people's heads into their hearts. It's got to be both, because some people don't, that heartstring tug isn't going to get them, but the numbers will, and vice versa.
Right.
So, yeah, you got to do both.
This is Kara Kellerman. I'll make a comment. Can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, go ahead. Okay, thank you. I've heard some really great things today that I could echo from Tipton County. The example Mayor Buckley gave happens every day here. And I wrote a comment in the chat that I couldn't agree more with the education. When I got involved with this organization in Tipton, I was a board member. I am now an employee. We've experienced huge growth. We have a very strong board of directors. But before I was an employee, I started what I call going on the speaking circuit with another board member. And what I will never forget is how much the elected officials didn't know about our organization. They were floored in some cases, and especially when we started sharing statistics. Your comment just a second ago about numbers or statistics, and then the tugging on the heartstrings, it's very, very true. So when we realized what was going on, And we have great elected officials. They're very supportive. In my comment, I put that funding from the city and the county here in Tipton has drastically increased. I mean, it's more than doubled. Simply because we let them know and then decided when we learned how much they didn't know, we were going to come back at least every year and provide updates. So we've been doing that since around 2012 or 13. So that's not that long ago. And our programs have grown tremendously. I just couldn't agree with that more. But I learned that a lot of times the elected officials are extremely busy people, just like all of us, and they weren't volunteering to walk in the doors here. They needed to be invited. And then the whole picture started changing.
And you have to eventually get to that point in the relationship that you move from education to making an ask and telling them what your needs are. And that's a big deal, especially then when you have the opportunity to let that grow and they can see that what they're doing is making a difference as well. So that's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. Maybe one day I'll get to Tipton and visit.
Oh, please come. It'd be great.
Kara, Tipton is a fairly rural area, correct? And didn't transportation up there, didn't your transportation program kind of get kicked off because someone had to be taken to a medical appointment in the back of a truck? Something like that? Did I hear that story?
You sure did. That was several years ago. I think I was a board member. Anyway, there was a person that was wheelchair bound that needed to get to a medical appointment. And there was, at the time, no transportation service in the area that could accommodate. Our organization existed, but was struggling so much financially that all we had was one single standard minivan that could not accommodate a wheelchair. And we were barely holding on to that minivan, all due to funding. So yes, we've come a long way. We finished 2019 with just under 6,000 rides for the year, with now 2 buses.
Quite a turnaround, Kara.
Oh, it's
Nice.
been huge here in Tipton, and it's all because of the support that we have. We also get tremendous support from the Tipton County Foundation. Most are called a community foundation, but ours is the Tipton County Foundation. They're our main source of funds as of now, and we have seen a tremendous increase in private donations, again, because of education and transparency. Transparency is so important. If they can see where their dollars go, they'll come back next year.
Yeah. And people want to support a successful program and a successful organization. We all have probably cared about organizations that are always struggling, and it doesn't feel that good to support that. So it's good when you can share those successes. As Bree said, there's always a success to share. When you don't need, every once in a while, we all need to bail out. But when you move beyond that, it feels really good, and your donors get really excited about that as well. So we have now gone 6 minutes past our time, and I really appreciate Bree and Amy and Mayor Buckley. He had to step off. We thank you so much for your time and the expertise that you shared. Deborah will be posting the live recording out there so that your communication and your sharing of time will be multiplied by the people who also get to hear it. So thank you very much for doing that. And thank you to everyone who gave their time today to learn. And if there's any other suggestions that you have, I'll throw this out there. The Senior Center Coalition is, we want to be of service to the senior center. So if there's another training topic or a good idea that you think you'd like to hear more about, you can email Deborah, who sent the invitation, and she'll make sure that gets passed along so that we can plan more programming if that's the desire that meets needs, so that we can help all the seniors across Indiana. That would be a great outcome. So thank you, everyone, and enjoy your afternoon.
Can I have one quick thing? We have
Sure.
one person who's identified as iPhone. Who's that, please? So I know I can add you to the list. Are you still there? Let me unmute you. Okay, I guess I want to be anonymous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't unmute for some reason too. So, all right. If you want to let me know who you are privately, do so to my email address. Everybody here on this call has that. So thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Deborah, do you want us to stay on? Do you want Dan and I to stay on?
No, I think we're done.
Okay, super.
And we have a meeting tomorrow. Don't forget, 11 o'clock.
Thank you. I'll see you.
Stay safe, everybody.
You too.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much, everyone.
Thank you.